Good morning and welcome to Take 10 for this week. In the English language, we have a plethora of idiomatic sayings that we use all the time. And I've been pondering one recently that is actually quite new to me. And it's this: don't get caught in the thick of thin things. Don't get caught in the thick of thin things. Let me explain that to you. To be caught in the thick of something is to be right at the very, very center of it, to be really, really involved. So, for example, you might say that a soldier fighting on the front line is in the thick of the battle. In the context of this particular idiom, thin things refers to trivial things, unimportant matters, things of little value or substance or significance. So the warning, don't get caught in the thick of thin things, is to not allow yourself to become so busy and so overwhelmed by the things of little importance. You may have heard this story before, but I will tell it. You can find it on YouTube as well. When the class began, wordlessly, the professor produced a large empty jar. He placed it on the desk in front of him and filled it with golf balls. He asked his students, "Is the jar full?" "Yes," responded the class. The professor picked up a bag of small pebbles and poured them into the jar. He shook the jar gently and the pebbles rolled into all the open areas between the golf balls. Again, he asked, "Is the jar full now?" "Yes," the students replied. Finally, the professor took a small bag of sand and poured it into the jar. Once again, the sand found its way into all the small gaps remaining in the jar. Once more, he asked the class if the jar was full, and once more, the class responded, yes, it was. Finally, he produced a couple of beers and poured the contents of one into the jar. "Now," said the professor, "I want you to recognize that the jar represents your life. The golf balls are the important things: family, friends, health, your favorite passions. The pebbles are lesser, yet still important things: your car, your job, your house. The sand is everything else, the small stuff of life. If you put the sand in first," he went on, "there is no room for the pebbles or the golf balls. The same goes for life. If you spend all your time and energy on the small stuff, you'll never have room for what is truly important to you. So pay attention to the things that are critical to your happiness and well-being. Set your priorities well, because everything else is just sand." One student raised their hand and asked it, "But Professor, what does the beer represent?" The professor smiled and said, "Well, I'm glad you asked. It simply goes to show that no matter how full your life may seem, there's always room for a beer with a friend." The warning message behind this story is not to get caught in the thick of thin things. It's the idea that we should be careful to keep our priorities right in terms of not letting the lesser concerns get in the way of greater ones. Stephen Covey calls this the important above the urgent. In a world where such speedy progress, our lives simply get busier and noisier. We live in a world of compulsive activity and instant availability. It therefore requires much greater intentionality for us to carve out quality time for the things of life that are of greatest importance. So the question is this: what am I filling my life with? Is my life marked by things of eternal importance, or have I become caught in the thick of thin things? I hope that gives you some food for thought this week. Take care.